A busy 2 days. We're at the business end of all the business talks. It seems the last day of the BRICS Summit. There they are, just making final preparations for what will be a very full hall of delegates. A little bit later, the flags are up. No one in there per se, as far as delegates are concerned, but sitting there probably all by her lonesome this time in the morning is Rofhiwa Madzena down at the Sandton Convention Centre for us. So 3 days coming to an end. A lot of business being spoken, a lot of business deals have been signed as well. Rofhiwa, maybe if you wouldn't mind, could we just start off with this memorandum of understanding between South Africa and China when it comes to the power issues, the blackouts here in SA? I see a lot of people talking about it.
Yeah, a very good morning to you, Gareth, and to our early morning viewers. I am indeed on my own at the Sandton Convention Centre on the last day of the 15th BRICS Summit. An important memorandum of understanding that was signed, Gareth, because it deals with the energy crisis that we are faced with. So Minister Josienzo Ramogopa, that's the Minister of Electricity, detailing some of the resources that will now be provided to some of South Africa's public health centres and other institutions across the country. So this includes inverters, batteries and other alternative sources of power, which he says were a donation by China for the immediate dealing of the energy crisis. In the long term, we're going to be getting a sense of a skills transfer when it comes to the technology that China used in its power crisis when it experienced the same thing. And that technology is going to be crucial because what it indicates is that a country the magnitude of China being able to deal with its power issues can that kind of a template, if you will, can be translated into South Africa's crisis, and that increases the confidence that we may actually be able to not only reduce load shedding but end it in its entirety, and that's according to the Electricity Minister engaging our colleague Rofhiwa Madzena yesterday after that important signing ceremony. Another important agreement, Gareth, has to do with agriculture. Minister Togo Didiza signing with her counterpart from China an agreement that will allow the export of avocados to China. So there is already an export of various other agricultural produce, including citrus, but this allows for emerging farmers in this space to then expand their exporting to China with various other products, which now will include avocados. And she says this is just one of the ways, the many ways, in fact, that we can make sure that we sustain the agricultural space, particularly in a time of climate change and extreme weather conditions, but also assist in creating a resilient agriculture space. This is what she had to say about that agreement.
In the state visit between South Africa and China, we actually signed, among others, the agreement to open up the movement of avocado from South Africa to the Chinese market. So that protocol from now on will enable those producers and agribusinesses who are in the avocado industry to be able to send their goods to China. And this is a build-up on a long trade relation that South Africa has had with China. We started in the early 2000s where we opened up for the apples. We came with the lemons, with beef, and now on avocado. We're still seeking much more market access in China on citrus, for instance, as part of our diversification strategy from the European market dependence.
All right, so big talks, Rofhiwa, over agriculture and electricity as well, which is so very important for all of us, isn't it? We're still sitting with the same blackouts pattern that we have for the last couple of weeks. If you just joined us, by the way, stage 1 till 4 p.m. this afternoon, then back into stage 3. It's kind of become our life at the moment. But as far as the other big discussion is concerned, final day, Rofhiwa, it's got to do, I'm sure, with the expansion. I'm not getting a sense really that we're getting much clarity on who is in, who's made the cut, and how exactly they're going to be contributing either. I imagine that will come up at some point today.
Or not, actually, Gareth. I think the heads of state and their close allies have been very tight-lipped about the process going forward when it comes to the expansion of BRICS and it being dubbed the BRICS Plus community of the global South countries. They have indicated, as we've seen and reported over the last few days, there have been over 20 applications from various countries, some in Africa as well, to form part of this community, but no indication as to a review of those applications, a criteria that a country would have to encompass to be part of this developing nations community, and when a final decision will come. I'm sure behind closed doors over the last few days there have been discussions, but nothing certainly that has been shared with the media. And Gareth, this is going to be an important expansion if it does indeed succeed, because what we're trying to do here is to reduce the reliance on the global West. And I gave this example of COVID-19 yesterday in a conversation to say when the pandemic hit, developing nations were forced to have their begging bowl in hand, begging the global West for vaccines to save the populations on the African continent. And of course, this is not something any government should do. The resources should be available within a government to deal with any crisis should one arise. And so the expansion of developing nations and the combination of resources is something that would prevent that reliance on the developed world. Another important thing to consider here, Gareth, is that the conversation around a BRICS currency would gain further momentum and perhaps more strength in the wanting to establish one. And what it would do, Gareth, is that establishing a BRICS country is essential for cheaper trade between nations. At the moment, there is a huge reliance on the dollar, and of course, developing nations cannot afford many goods and services in terms of importing them because of the dollar and the cost at which things are purchased. So a BRICS currency or an agreement to trade in our own currencies with different nations that would be part of the BRICS Plus community would certainly reduce the price of not only doing business, but the price that consumers have to pay for different products.
Yeah, an admission framework, I suppose, is also one of the big talking points around those countries possibly joining. I'm seeing some commentary on the side, Rofhiwa, that a lot of it's got to do with GDP. Of course it does, doesn't it? That the countries that may get admitted to BRICS, surely the big five at the moment, the main members of BRICS, are going to look at GDPs. As I say goodbye to you for at least the moment, I'll come back to you later, of course, Rofhiwa. Just let's talk logistics for a second. Any big plans as far as the closing is concerned? I imagine we'll hear from South Africa's president at the close later today.
That's absolutely correct, Gareth. So there will be a series of sessions where discussions and panel discussions happen throughout the course of the morning. And then, of course, the BRICS Business Council presenting the agreements that it's had between business leaders to the statesmen. And then, of course, he will close off the summit officially. But we do anticipate to hear from the other four heads of state before President Cyril Ramaphosa officially ends the 15th BRICS Summit today.
Yeah, it's been such a big build-up to this. It's frightening to think how quickly it's gone past. We're that last day already, but sitting all by her lonesome in the Sandton Convention Centre for us, Rofhiwa Madzena, going to get very full, very busy, very loud a little bit later.